Beyond the Table, Reimagining Power with Black Women at the Center. Good evening, everyone. Thank you for being here today. I'm truly honored to share this space with you. Recently, I had the extraordinary privilege of interviewing Tamika Harris, a visionary leader whose work has fundamentally transformed how we understand representation and power in America's institutions. Tamika isn't just a thought leader. She's a revolutionary architect of change who has dedicated her life to dismantling the invisible barriers that keep Black women from decision making tables. Her groundbreaking research and fearless advocacy have opened doors for thousands, challenging the very foundations of how power operates in our society. Tamika's insights cut through the comfortable narratives we often tell ourselves about progress, challenging us to look deeper at the structures that continue to exclude Black women from decision making spaces. Her work doesn't just illuminate problems, it reimagines possibilities. And today I want to share what I learned from our conversation. We often celebrate Black women as the backbone of communities, as reliable voters, as cultural innovators. We applaud their resilience, their strength, their ability to overcome. But there's something profoundly troubling about this narrative. What if I told you that the very qualities we celebrate in Black women, their resilience, their strength, their ability to make something from nothing, are the same qualities that allow systems to continue excluding them from rooms where decisions are made? What if our celebration of their ability to overcome obstacles becomes an excuse not to remove those obstacles? This is the counterintuitive truth Tamika Harris shared with me. While Black women are widely recognized as pillars of their communities and drivers of progress, they remain systematically excluded from decision making spaces, even when those decisions directly impact them. The current narrative celebrates their resilience and achievements, but rarely interrogates why their voices are left out at the highest levels, especially in business and policy. This exclusion isn't just a matter of representation, it has real consequences for economic opportunity, innovation, and community well being. Let me share something that might shock you. In 2025, a spring poll revealed that 87% of Black women reported worsening economic conditions despite headlines celebrating job growth and declining unemployment rates. 87%. Think about that for a moment. While news outlets were broadcasting economic recovery, nearly 9 out of 10 Black women were experiencing something entirely different. This disconnect between official statistics and lived experience isn't accidental. It's what happens when policies are designed without the input of those most affected by them. It's what happens when we mistake visibility for influence, when we confuse having a seat at the table with having the power to shape what happens at that table. The rising cost of living outpaces wage gains. Persistent gaps in healthcare access and education quality threaten long term stability, even when jobs temporarily rebound. These aren't just abstract economic indicators, they're the daily reality for millions of women whose perspectives rarely shape economic policy. The poll results reflect cumulative frustrations after several years marked by pandemic fallout, followed quickly by rollbacks in reproductive rights and economic protection central to working families' security. This wasn't an individual breaking point, it was a collective one, a moment when the gap between narrative and reality became too wide to ignore. Now, you might be thinking, but we've made progress. We see more Black women in leadership positions than ever before. And you'd be partially right. But Tamika Harris challenges us to look beyond mere presence to actual influence. Consider Tony Towns Whitley, who in 2025 became CEO of Science Application International Corp, based making her one of very few Black female CEOs among major federal contractors. After decades navigating tech's glass ceiling as both an engineer and executive leader at Microsoft, before joining SAIC, she leveraged her experience building high performing teams under pressure. But Towns Whitley's story isn't just about personal achievement, it's about transformation. When she took the helm at SAIC, she faced an industry dominated by white male leadership and limited institutional support for diversity initiatives. But rather than simply accepting her position as a token of progress, she implemented intentional hiring practices, focused on equity, and developed mentorship programs targeting underrepresented groups. Under her leadership, SAIC improved its diversity metrics, both within its executive ranks and company wide, and fostered a more inclusive culture that led to measurable improvements in employee retention. She became the first Black woman CEO among top 100 federal contractors, launched internal DEI task forces, and increased minority representation across management tiers. Her example challenges assumptions about who can lead large technology organizations and sets a precedent for others seeking systemic change. But here's the crucial point: her success wasn't just about getting a seat at the table, it was about fundamentally changing how the table operates. This brings me to the first key insight from my conversation with Tamika Harris. Representation must go beyond optics. True progress is measured by how many Black women have meaningful influence over decisions, not just titles or symbolic roles. Too often we mistake presence for power. We celebrate the appointment of the first or the only without examining whether these individuals have the authority, resources, and support to effect real change. Representation without power is just decoration. The second insight Tamika shared is that economic disparities remain urgent. Despite gains in employment numbers, most Black women still feel economically vulnerable. This isn't perception, it's reality. When nearly 87% of Black women report worsening conditions compared to previous years, we must ask ourselves, what metrics are we using to measure economic health? Whose experiences are centered in our economic policies? Whose needs are prioritized? But Tamika Harris doesn't just identify problems, she illuminates pathways forward. And this leads to her third key insight: legacy requires collective action. Dr. Shaven Arlene Bradley's presidency at the National Council of Negro Women provides a powerful example of this principle in action, leading efforts against cultural erasure while expanding advocacy on college campuses nationwide. Dr. Arlene Bradley confronted political violence against Black communities alongside attempts to erase cultural history amid growing economic pressures on young members. Rather than working in isolation, she strengthened NCNW's multi generational network through campus chapters focused on sisterhood, service projects addressing immediate needs like financial literacy workshops, and public policy engagement campaigns amplifying youth voices. The results were remarkable: rapid membership growth among young adults, successful national campaigns protecting educational opportunities for marginalized students, and revitalized legacy programming adapted for Gen Z audiences. Dr. Arlene Bradley rose from grassroots organizing roles into national leadership after witnessing firsthand how policy changes disproportionately harmed working class families, like hers growing up. She expanded NCNW presence onto over 100 campuses and built coalitions with other civil rights organizations, defending voting rights and economic justice measures after post pandemic setbacks. Her work reinforces the importance of intergenerational collaboration within advocacy movements, ensuring sustained momentum regardless of shifting political climates. Building lasting change demands multi generational collaboration. Connecting seasoned leaders with emerging voices ensures our advocacy remains strong and relevant across generations. This is where we find hope, not in individual achievement alone, but in collective action that bridges generations, sectors, and communities. What these examples from Tamika Harris's insights show us is that the path forward isn't about assimilation into existing power structures. It's about transformation of those structures. It's not about getting a seat at someone else's table. It's about building new tables where everyone has the power to shape decisions. When we talk about Black women's leadership, we often focus on their exceptional qualities, their resilience, their determination, their ability to overcome obstacles. But there's something troubling about this framing. It places the burden of change on individual women rather than on systems designed to exclude them. What if instead of asking Black women to be exceptional just to access basic opportunities, we created systems where their participation was the norm? What if instead of celebrating their ability to overcome barriers, we removed those barriers entirely? This is the radical vision Tamika Harris shared with me. A vision not just of representation, but of transformation. A vision where Black women's perspectives aren't just included, but centered. A vision where their experiences inform policy, shape business practice, and drive innovation. And this vision matters not just for Black women, but for all of us, because systems that exclude any group's perspectives are fundamentally flawed systems. They miss crucial insights, overlook important needs, and fail to harness the full range of human potential. When we center the experiences of those who have been most marginalized, we create solutions that work better for everyone. When we design policies with Black women's needs in mind, we address fundamental inequities that affect many communities. When we transform power structures to be more inclusive, we build more resilient, innovative, and just institutions. This isn't just about fairness, though fairness matters deeply. It's about effectiveness. It's about creating systems that actually work to solve our most pressing problems. So I stand before you today with a challenge that demands action, not just acknowledgement. The time for polite conversations about inclusion is over. The time for symbolic gestures and token appointments is past. What we need now is nothing short of revolution in how we structure power. I challenge you to examine the tables where you sit. Who built them? Who decides who gets invited? Whose voices shape the agenda? And most importantly, what are you willing to risk to transform them? For those with institutional power, your task is clear. Move beyond diversity initiatives to examine how decisions are made, whose perspectives are valued, and how resources are allocated. Create pathways not just for token representation, but for meaningful influence. For those working within systems, build coalitions across generations, sectors, and communities. Recognize that lasting change requires both institutional knowledge and fresh perspectives, both insider strategy and outsider pressure. And for all of us, shift our metrics of success. Instead of celebrating the first or the only, Measure progress by how many doors remain open, how many voices shape decisions, how many perspectives inform policy. The vision Tamika Harris shared isn't just aspirational, it's essential for our collective future. It demands that we move beyond comfort into courage, beyond symbolism into substance. It requires us to reimagine power not as something to be hoarded, but as something to be shared. So I ask you, how will you use your platform, not just your presence, to actively reshape systems so they work for all of us instead of simply asking the marginalized to adapt? Who else should be building alongside you? And what will you tear down today so that tomorrow we can all build something better? The future is waiting for your answer. And so are generations of women whose voices have been silenced for far too long. Thank you.